Ashtavakragita, chapter 4, verse 2. The true seeker feels no elation, even in that exalted state which Indra and all the gods unhappily longs for. The sage is saying the true seeker doesn't feel extreme happiness or excitement. When he says the true seeker doesn't feel extreme happiness or excitement, he actually meant that the true seeker doesn't feel that temporary happiness or excitement which is there at some moment and which is not there at other moment. And when the sage says Indra and all other gods, he is trying to explain about a mind that quickly looks for a reference when it assumes the power, wealth, energy, and all the other things which is beyond human capacity. The sage is taking the example of Indra because, as per the mythology, Indra is celebrated for his powers based on his status as god of order. And as per the stories, he would be longing for his position and status as a king. Okay. If we observe closely, the sage is saying that consciousness is not a thing that the mind can assume. The mind has limitations, and we cannot bring the self, the consciousness, the God, into the limitations of mind. Let's pause for a moment and reiterate and look into what the sage is saying. Why is he giving example of this? Why is he giving example of Indra? Let's look into all of this. The sage doesn't have anything against the stories or the mythology, right? He's telling us to see, if someone has told some story, if someone has given some reference, that is not for us to just stick on to that story, just to see that as a reference and just stop there saying that, okay, he is the god and he has done so and so for his position, for his status, for his, whatever, and just get stuck there. The mind exactly does that. The sage is saying that is not reaching God. That is also an ego layer for us to get stuck to. Right? The whole purpose of sage giving these examples is for us to look into it. Right? He is saying that if we are caught up with any limitations like this, by giving some reference, that is not going to help us. That is not going to help us to reach God. Right? And there, the stories or the references which was given by great people at that point in the form of stories, for us to see something beyond the story. It is not for us to get stuck there. Right? It is for us to see that the gods who were looking, or the gods as per the stories, who were looking for the status, who were looking for the positions, were they really happy? Who is happy? Who is unhappy? To whom is all this happiness and unhappiness for? Isn't it all for the ego? Let's see. Let's see this very closely. Let's look into ourselves. So, the sage is saying that the seeker feels no elation. There is no reference of big or small for the true seeker. The true seeker is not giving any preference to the ego, and these big, small, happy, unhappy is all just for the ego. So here the sage has gone to a point where he is telling us to inquire all the references that the mind gets into when it gets insights of superhuman capabilities. Right? But the first step for us is to check if we are caught up with the things of this world. Like, leave the other stories of mythology or other things. Are we still caught up by looking at the humans and trying to bound ourselves with the limitations of how so and so a person has made such a good name? How so and so person has made so much of wealth? Are we caught up with these references? If yes, then we need to look into ourselves and see why I am still giving preference to my ego to fulfill the needs. Right? If we are so much attached to our thoughts on how so and so has been achieved, right? And definitely if it is not going to help us in reaching God, why am I getting caught with it? The mind might be saying that no, you're not worried about it, but let us be very truthful with ourselves. If I am giving much importance to those thoughts, and if it fascinates me, then I am interested. Our mind is interested in it, and it is drawing our attention and energy. Is it helping us to reach God? If not, then is it worth spending my time and energy on these mind games? You know, these constant reminders is very necessary for us to stay with the verses of saints. Let us not be overconfident with ourselves that we got it now. No. Until the mind is saying that I got it, it's not true at all. There needs a lot of effort. And this effort that we will be putting to see ourselves is worth. Let us be with the people who are helping us to see our true nature. Let us be with the gurus who are helping you to cut off this layer of ego which is creating hurdles to be with the God. Let us be with the books which are helping us to see ourselves. There is no way that it's going to be helpful in just following the people who we think that, there are symptoms that this person has reached God. That is because the symptoms are all bound by the limitations of the mind. And we have discussed this multiple times that God cannot be in any limitations or boundaries. In case if you would like to listen to the previous verses, I have attached the playlist link in the description. You can go through all the verses. Let us make effort to see ourselves. The person, book, audios, situations which are helping us to see ourselves are the ones which are helping us to reach God. The ego doesn't want us to look at ourselves because it wants to stay. It wants to have its presence, right? But let us make the effort, complete effort, to see where we are, what we are talking about, what we are thinking, what we are seeing, what are our tendencies, what are our intentions. All of this we'll have to be aware of. The mind will create the reference. It will draw our attention. It's the nature of the mind to do so. However, with enquiry and with the help of the sages, we always need to see for whom this reference is being created. That's when the ego can be seen. And we need to be totally aware of this. And let us contemplate on this. Whenever there is a reference that is being created, let's come to that neutrality. When this neutrality has been met, we are with God. God is always holding our hand. We have a choice to be with God or leave His hand, run away, come back, run away, come back. Let's not play with this game. We know that this bliss, we don't have it anywhere else. It's only with God. We are certain about it. Let's ask, what is so specific and important when we are in our original nature? Let us inquire who I am.